and then we can start doing pre-talk. It seems like every time we say like, oh, we don't need to record this, something interesting comes up.
That's why I got Craig on it here, but we'll see what happens here.
I do like how you have your show, so you've sent your show notes through here, and you have them separated by praise and complain, which is...
Yeah, that's... Just give me a second.
Or what do we want to talk about? It's been a while.
It has been a while. Gil, how about let's start... there's a lot of things that I'm tempted to start with right out of the gate, but let's keep it relevant to the show and discuss just really quickly our new fancy website.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Mm-hmm. So last week, 2 weeks ago, I got really sick and I couldn't get out of bed. So I thought, what better way to fill this time than to build a website? And it's just like, so we were talking about how we like Simple Note just because it's so simple. It's just headlines and then body text or bulleted like hierarchy of topics. So I wanted to do something similar to that, just very simple for the website. So if you go to thinkularity.co, it will be just that. It'll be a list of all the shows, and you click into them, and that's where our show notes live now, rather than in Simple Note where we were linking everybody to before. I don't know. That's really it. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I just have praise, Gil. I think it looks very, very good, very our style, very simple. It's a big step up from Simple Note. The one thing that we didn't have when we had Simple Note was a dark mode, so maybe we'll push for that here. I'll push for that and see if we can get if I can get you to implement that. But otherwise, yeah, fantastic and superior in every way. And I love the
dark mode should be pretty simple because it's really, like I said, headlines. Like I've got like H1, H2, and paragraph tags is the whole website. So it'd be really simple to change, I think, and I can do that. We'll see if we can do that before the next episode.
What font are we rocking here?
So I didn't build this from scratch. I built this from editing somebody else's template, and this is the font that they chose, and I just liked it, so I kept it. Let me see if I can figure it out, though.
No, I was just curious, but it looks just really good. And again, huge step up from Simple Note. I will note that you did this right after it wasn't like a lot of work, but I did create a little directory system for our podcast using Simple Note as like almost kind of a website creation platform because I just have a Simple Note that has a bunch of links to other things. And I don't promise to keep this up to date now that we have a proper website, but if anyone wants to go to directory.thinkularity.co, it will now show just pretty much every link we have to give, which most notably includes some of the episodes that are not Thinkularity, but have either Gil or myself or both of us in the case of our first episode. So,
yeah.
Ooh, we've come a long way, Gil.
That's kind of what encouraged me to make the site when you sent me that, because I was like, okay, now we're getting to the point where we have to maintain, like, for people that don't know, everything was redirecting from a domain that you own, thinkularity.co, and we would create a subdomain for the episode number for every episode that would forward to a Simple Note published note. So this was like becoming like a thing that we had to maintain. So every time I would post it, I have to share it to Paul. Paul would have to forward the subdomain. We would have to add that link to the page, and then this new step of adding that episode to the directory. So that's kind of why I made this, so that we no longer have to do really any of those steps. We don't have to set up a subdomain because it's just thinkularity.co/episode name instead of the subdomain. And we just copy and paste our markdown from our Simple Note notes, where we just kind of do our regular show notes and move those into the website as a blog post. So it streamlined a bunch of things and also created the directory at the same time. And then there's things on there like connect, listen, and support at the top. These are just really small pages that are kind of like where we can add whatever we want. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I touched on it before. We had discussed. I don't know. I did something else with Simple Note a little while back, and I think it might have just been our show notes, or actually for some other podcasts that I've done in the past. I've used a Simple Note with a bit.ly, so it's just a short URL, but I customize it so it's memorable. So it's a nice, short, memorable URL, and that points to a Simple Note. And then that Simple Note, I put several different links, and it acts as sort of a directory for whatever I'm doing. So, for example, I've had like times for a podcast we're recording, and I had a link to a countdown. When you visited the bit.ly, it redirected to the Simple Note, and then you had a link to a countdown until the next episode. And I had a link to, different time zone conversions, and then a link to like local time of when the next episode will be recorded. So it just was really useful for keeping everyone on the same page. And it's really powerful, actually. And I love you can basically build a little website with, just on your phone, just mobily.
Yeah.
But
so what show was this for?
I occasionally I'll do things for a podcast called Elon Explained.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so it's been on the decline a little bit. We haven't made an episode as recently, but just when we were, there were 3 people. One was in Germany and one was in Dallas. So it was all 3 time zones, and one was like a wildly different time zone. And in the past, I've had like a guy from like New Zealand and I think France, and it's like, oh man, coordinating that and just making sure everybody understands the right time zone. And especially because it's like a bit.ly link, I can check to see that people actually have clicked it and kind of get feedback and things. And then, you can just build a little tiny interface for people to click through to get to the relevant links and have it just be really clean and, simple to use internally. Like, it's not great externally if you're trying to build a big company. I think, at this point we've gotten past that with Thinkularity, and this website is really great. But man, if you're like small or just one person or something, like you can do anything with a Namecheap URL redirecting to a Simple Note.
Yeah. What you said about checking bit.ly is a nice advantage of the website too, is that we can see who's clicking on. We don't have to create a bit.ly link every time. We can just have Google Analytics on the site, and we can see, are people looking at the show notes, are they helpful to people, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But you did mention, dark mode for the website, and you don't have Mavericks, or what is it called? Mojave yet. There's so many of these names. But you don't have Mojave yet, but Simple Note has a dark mode on Mojave. Did you know that?
Oh, wait. What do you mean? Like the Simple Note app on Mojave has dark mode?
Yeah.
Oh. See, I actually use the web client most of the time, so that wouldn't affect me. But we can talk about Mojave some.
Okay.
Let's lump it in. We'll talk about iOS here too some. But start us off, Gil. How do you like Mojave?
To be honest, I haven't used it a ton. So really the only feature that I'm taking advantage of is dark mode, which I like. And then the new App Store app is nicely redesigned, which doesn't affect me a ton. But it's just like when I do open it, it's just a more pleasant experience. But yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. Aside from I do really like dark mode.
Mm-hmm.
So why haven't you switched? I'm like the person that gets the new operating system like the second that I can. So why is it that you didn't?
I'm that kind of person too, Gil. So there's a couple reasons here. One, I was just pretty busy relative to other times in my life. Just a lot of transition going on, which is part of the reason that we haven't recorded in a while. So just busyness, and pretty much lump on top of that the fact that like it's just such a thing. You gotta download it. It feels like a more complicated process than iOS, where you kind of click the button and it updates, and pretty much everything is guaranteed to still work. Whereas with macOS Mojave, so I'm not even on whatever was before Mojave. I don't even remember.
What?
Is that High
You're
Sierra.
blowing my mind right now. Yeah.
I'm not even on High Sierra because there was literally nothing that benefited me. I looked down the list of features, like I tried to justify it in some free time that I had, and there was nothing that I wanted. So I was like, okay, I'm just not going to get that one.
But was there anything that made you not want to? Like, it's simply the burden of having to update that's stopping you, or there were things in it that you didn't like?
Well, this is like my process for updating, right? So I've got to, in theory, I got to back it up, which I don't know. I do that for the iPhone because again, it's clicking a button. But for the Mac, like, I'm not. I'm gonna feel like I should back it up, but I probably won't. Then I'll go through the update. And then once the update happens, I pretty much, have to try to restore everything to as much working order as possible, which is usually not too bad. But I do have to like check things, and it's just like a lot of mental hassle to know that like potentially now everything could be broken. And on top of that, there's like little settings hidden everywhere now, like that I have to like hunt down and like cross-reference the list of new features on the website, to make sure I'm aware of them, just to be like, that's just kind of how I like to use things. I like to know how they work and sort of be a power user. So to upgrade is just a huge process.
Yeah, maybe I take a more lenient approach. Like, I don't update anything because nothing lives on my laptop. Everything is in iCloud. And then, like, if I lose some apps, if something happens with an app, I'm typically fine with that. I just like to be able to poke around and find the new features, which I haven't had a ton of time to do. But I don't know. I just like can't not be on the latest update.
I'm probably gonna get there because I think really like looking over this, I was excited about some things, but I think realistically, dark mode will be the only thing that I really benefit from and recognize my benefit from. And it's not, it's nice, but it's an aesthetic, and it actually might end up like, so I do kind of a lot of custom things here where like I've remapped where my desktop is, my bar at the top and at the bottom hide, and they're both already like as dark, there's like a little checkbox to make that top bar dark.
Yeah.
And so just like to introduce dark mode now system wide, it'll probably be fine and it'll probably look better. But I don't know. Just that little aesthetic has not been enough to justify it yet anyway.
Yeah.
But I think this is a little bit testament to, Apple seems to be pushing iOS as the future, and it's just feeling like more of the future. I don't know. To update the MacBook and like every time I open it, if I haven't used it in a little while, which I haven't been using my Mac in general as much recently, a bunch of texts come through the iMessage thing just because it's not constantly connected to the internet, and it doesn't have LTE built in, and it is starting to just feel overall like an older way to do things.
Yeah, I do a lot more on my phone now than I did even a year ago. Like, it's still nice because I use it for work, like my like day job work, my regular work. No like side project stuff, but I used to do a lot more side project stuff than I do now. So that's when I was really focused on the Mac. But now that it's just like what I use to record and like do some cryptocurrency stuff on, like I'm not as involved in all the nuances of the new operating system. I don't know. Something about me just has to be on it regardless of what the features are.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I do want to get on it. But ultimately I want to have as few devices as possible. And like, if I had to pick one right now, it would absolutely be the iPhone. And just, upkeeping the Mac, is becoming more difficult. And you know what? The reason that I used to say that I need the MacBook is because, it's got a couple of values here, right? So if you're really typing something, that's pretty useful. And, I don't know, people think that they can get pretty good typing out of the iPad. And I'm not a big believer in that yet, but I guess it's a thing.
I can't do that. If I'm doing any extensive typing, it's got to be on the Mac. But then also, like, there are some things you just can't do on iOS. So I do some small like iOS development stuff, which seems crazy that you can't develop iOS apps on an iOS device yet. But like, there are cases where I have to use it, and like I need a screen this big to even do. Like I'm doing a few things right now that the screen is just too small even as it is. I'm on a 12-inch screen and I need something bigger than this. So I definitely couldn't do heavy multitasking the way that I am now on an iOS device. So it definitely has its place, but it seems to be less and less.
Yeah, and we were just talking before we recorded, just kind of arbitrary limitations. So like there is kind of multitasking now in iPads and things, but it's not like, the MacBook, it'll record to like 7 different programs if you want it to, or you can have 7 different windows up on the screen. So there's some power there. And, kind of more niche things like illustration, like vector illustration, that has to be on the Mac right now. I've found nothing that's maybe for iPad. There's that one that I think we discussed before called Affinity Designer. But for like just the iPhone, it's a far stretch. And even at that, I'd still much prefer a MacBook for making like vector kind of things.
Yeah. Photoshop did you see that? They just released like a full version of Photoshop on the iPad.
I did not see anything about that. Have you looked into it? Have you tried it?
No, I don't use Photoshop because I don't need it a whole lot. I use something called Pixelmator, which is already on the iPad, which I don't even really use an iPad anymore. But whenever I need to do any sort of vector stuff, it's always in an app called Graphic. Whenever I need to do any sort of photo editing or Photoshop type stuff, it's always in Pixelmator. But I can imagine why. So like when you're in the art world, the Wacom tablets, however you pronounce it, is a huge part of the design process, even in Photoshop. So if people start using iPad Pros, that's the big one, not Macs. Okay, iPad Pros as a tablet with full Photoshop on it, I can see a transition there. I can see why people would transition to iPads in the workplace as opposed to these tablets and computers if it's just as powerful on the iPad Pro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I didn't get around to saying it when I started earlier, but like the big reason I would give as an example, just my easy thought that I don't have to think anymore about of why I need a MacBook, used to be, I need to be able to like run simple scripts. But I don't, like, it's becoming a lot less valid because while I haven't really used the Pythonista app that I paid $10 for, it's there and it's a pretty full-fledged version of Python just on my iPhone, and then that can integrate with shortcuts. And so, for example, like one of the common things that I use Terminal for and stuff is just like, so I don't have to pay for YouTube Red, I just have like a playlist and I, go in and I have a little terminal command and it'll download all the videos, right? Very useful on occasion. And a lot of things like that. But with shortcuts, a lot of people now have created a shortcut and I click a button and just instantly from the iPhone, it saves a playlist from YouTube and saves all the videos to my camera roll, which actually removes a step because I used to download these videos and then airdrop them over to my iPhone. So this is more efficient, if anything.
Yeah, I'm still curious about this process. So do you do this for even like short 5-minute videos, or are you only doing this for longer form stuff?
I haven't actually done this in a while. I used to like try to load up a lot of content if I was going on a long trip and just basically have as much as I could. And it would be nice, like sometimes I'm just not in like buried in a building almost, so that I don't have a lot of like cellular access. So maybe I'll use it some more in the future here. And it just, sometimes I use it a lot and sometimes I don't. But those are the kinds of things that I like think, oh, okay, this is really helpful to have a MacBook, but it's becoming less the case. Let's talk about iOS briefly.
Okay.
So, couple things. Let's start with, first off, how's your experience with shortcuts been? Where are we?
Well, I just can't find anything that's like actually useful. There are a lot of things that I want to do that it's just like it just won't let me do it. There are some things that like I think it'll be more helpful in like a year when apps have really like gone in on supporting this. But there are some situations where like the Siri shortcuts aren't all available in the Shortcuts app. So like when you're inside of an app, there are Siri shortcuts, but
Mm-hmm.
then there's the Shortcuts app where you can build the workflows and have it perform these actions. And there are scenarios where maybe I want to make actions in an app without opening the app, but you can't do that. It's got to open the app to, for instance, start my trip on transit. So, or it can't like find the next bus route in transit and send that to me so that I can press a button in the morning and it says, hi Gail, this is going to be the weather and the bus comes in this many minutes. It starts the trip and starts maybe a podcast. Like it can start the podcast, but like the transit app and my weather app aren't supporting reading just reading stuff to me without opening the app. I have to look at it. So I'm trying to build in these things where maybe it's going through the flow, but it's not like I just don't have to look at it. It's just saying wait 5 seconds and then move on to the next action. But that breaks down sometimes where it will just like it needs to have the app open for 3 seconds to perform the action. So I wait for 3 seconds, but then it never goes past that to the next step unless I do something specific. And I don't know, I just keep running into these issues and I've kind of given up on it because I've got like a watered down version of what I want as my morning routine kind of checkbox. I'm not 100% happy with it though. But I don't know. Have you got anything like really useful out of Shortcuts yet?
The one I've developed myself has been that one that is a shortcut sharing shortcut. And I do love that one. I think it worked out very well. I forget if we talked about that before. But that's been
like kind of deprecated because there's just a shortcut sharing button now, right? Or at least it's working now.
Well, there's the link, right? You can generate a link, but no, that's what mine was kind of built on. So what it is you can create you pick your shortcut and you hit the little generate iCloud link. And as I understand it, I think every time, like if it's different at all, it's a new link. If you change like one letter, I think you get a new link. So version control, like a link that is generated for a shortcut is like hard coded to that shortcut and will never change or update, right? So if you share that link, it will continue to work for the rest of time, which is kind of nice because it's like, oh, this is the shortcut. I can share it. And it doesn't matter if I accidentally change something and then, everybody that's using the shortcut, their shortcut gets messed up. And it's probably a security thing too, so that I can't like change it to share private information or whatever.
Yeah.
After it becomes like popular. But that's where we are, I think, with the shortcuts. And so what my little shortcut did was you generate that link and then you just basically give it that link and it shares it to just a little spreadsheet. And so it's kind of cool. But that brings me to kind of like shortcut version control, which is my biggest frustration with the whole system, which is, again, I think most people are sharing by links, like iCloud links.
Yeah.
But there's no hardly ability to give a description. I see people in the shortcut, they build a little like dictionary and they put in like they use a little note to make comments on each line of code. And then they put in a header using a dictionary.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It seems like so much abuse of the shortcut system to just work around and like people, saving variables or using the clipboard to transfer variables and things like that. And it's just, it's a little bit of a mess right now.
Yeah. I guess that's why I mean that I think it'll be better in a year because more developers will have it built into their apps. But then also right now it's really just a reskinned workflow with a little bit more system access. So I think the next version of it in iOS 13, I think maybe that's where it will actually get some of the like Apple-y kind of thinking behind it. And maybe the workflow team is even still working on this but now they have a whole new suite of options that they have to choose from now that they have system access being owned by Apple. So I'm just kind of waiting for version 2, I guess, and hoping that they add a bunch of these little things and make these things possible, like passing variables or doing actions in an app without opening it or, whatever it is.
like location and time-based triggering. I think it'd be a big one.
That would be great. Yeah.
Uh,
And some people are
yeah,
doing
we'll
some
see.
hacky things with if this then that to trigger workflows and things like that. But you shouldn't need to do that. It should all be built in. So I'm waiting for that.
Yeah. I'm a little skeptical that since, Apple kind of, this is the same thing with Siri, right? It's almost exactly the same as what happened with Siri. They just bought a company and implemented it and gave it a little more system access. And like, it's tough to argue that Siri has come a long way. I think it does some more things and it does sports a lot better for whatever reason. But it's still like not, has there been a Siri 2.0 that was like a huge, makeover or improvement? I don't know.
Yeah, I think Shortcuts is the biggest improvement to Siri so far.
That's true. Like that, I guess that is Siri 2.0. So I'm a little skeptical though that it might just take forever to get a real heavy improvement on the current shortcuts, especially because they're not even pushing it as like a default. It's not an app by default.
Right. I guess I'm thinking of this as kind of a possible inflection point. They could either keep going the route that they are going with all of these things and just kind of like, get the minimum usability out of it and then not really take off with it from there. Or they can be viewing this as, everybody knows that Siri sucks. Shortcuts is our chance to like make it more useful. So we're going to invest a lot of time in making shortcuts really, really great. All these developers will build all these shortcuts, and then eventually we will use all the things that we see people building in shortcuts. We'll build that directly into Siri without even needing, shortcuts. Maybe it's some shared shortcut thing, but it's all happening in the back end. You don't need to like manage it through shortcuts, and normal people can use it now. It's not necessarily that I think that it will happen, but I think that this is a possible inflection point for them to do something like that.
I do think the big difference this time around, I don't know if it'll make a difference, but there is a difference that developers can do something with this, right? Where Siri was like totally independent and finally is kind of integrating because of shortcuts with other apps. So,
right,
yeah. Well, we can leave it at that. And the only other point I want to make about iOS is I had high hopes, Gil, and again, this is why with Mojave, like the only benefit I really stood to gain was dark mode. And I was like, well, that's not really worth it. But iOS, between being easier and in at least kind of my view is less risky with, kind of constant iCloud backups on the phone. And it just feels like, iOS is just more robust kind of to a new operating system potentially just causing something to not work. So I went for that, right? And I'll tell you what, though. My two things I was excited for, shortcuts and screen time, and probably a couple other things, none of that has really materialized to be any different for me. So I haven't really been using shortcuts that much. There's potential. And then the screen time stuff between, like, I've kind of already gone through a whole lot of turning off notifications to the point that I haven't used that deliver quietly thing at all. And I have like basically turned off all of my screen time limits or whatever at this point. So
I do have something about that. So and I kind of agree. Like I've already got my phone pretty locked down. I do like being able to go back and look at how I'm doing on things. It has encouraged me to turn off some additional notifications I didn't already have on. But my wife recently started using this to stop using like Instagram and Facebook as much. And she's used the feature where you put in a unique passcode. So I'm the only person that knows this passcode so that she can use Facebook and Instagram more than, X minutes per day. So we talked about that a little bit, I think, at some point, about that being a feature, but, just reporting that it's being used and working well so far.
That's good. I haven't tried that passcode. I've mostly just gotten frustrated and turned kind of screen time features off. The one thing, so here's my big point here. I upgraded from the last iOS because there were a little bit of aesthetic changes. So iOS 10 to 11, I believe, like the control center, I think, changed on that update. And, you know, I think I just went for it because I was like, yeah, I want the new thing. And let me tell you, the one thing that I notice that I'm not sure anything has improved. Oop, I dropped my phone. I'm not sure anything has improved necessarily, but the thing that was made worse is that the play button when you swipe up Control Center, at least on my little iPhone SE, is very difficult to press.
Because it's higher now?
It's smaller? It's just squished in. It's like a little, like maybe inch squared of the screen is the whole like play box, you know, that has like whatever song's playing and the play button and the back button and the next button. And it's just very easy for me to miss the play button.
Yeah, it's half the size that it used to be, or less than.
Yeah, and I swear I thought that they were going to fix that in iOS 12, but apparently they have not. And just my point here is that going from 10 to 11, the only thing I remember is that becoming just like it's a slight thing, but man, like just because of that, I almost reverted back from 12 to 11, or sorry, 11 to 10.
I have a complaint about Control Center too. So
what's that?
I think I might have talked about this before. Actually, I'd be surprised if I didn't because it drives me crazy. But on the iPhone 10, there's obviously no home button. So the gesture to get out of an app to go back to the home page is to swipe up from the bottom of the screen, which on previous phones, swiping up from the bottom of the screen is to get to Control Center. So what they did was they've made a larger phone, and then this year made an even larger phone, and they moved Control Center to the most difficult possible place to swipe down from. So I have to swipe down from the top right corner to get to Control Center, which is always a two-handed action now. Like my thumb can only reach halfway up the screen. Why is something that I'm using like constantly throughout the day all the way at the top of the screen? Things to be shifted down. I was hoping that something would be fixed in iOS 12, which obviously I knew, at WWDC that it wouldn't be that way. But all they need to do is move it to the bottom right corner. So the swiping down from the top center is Notification Center. From the top right is Control Center. So why can't they just do top or from the middle of the bottom be the home button, and from the right at the bottom be Control Center? It seems to make so much more sense, but it really drives me crazy that I cannot reach Control Center with one hand.
Yeah, we sound really naggy, but like,
it's such a simple change though, and it doesn't make sense why you would start shifting things higher and higher on these huge screens.
Yeah, and Apple's supposed to be really good at this, and for the experience, I don't know. I guess maybe hopefully the average person or most people are benefiting as these updates come through, but just these little things with my play button being harder to get to, and like that without, just the lack of a home button altogether. I mean, that's kind of the whole reason all that's happening. I don't know. Feel like a grumpy old man over here, but are we really getting improvements?
Yeah, I mean, I do like Control Center more than what they had before. I have such a scratchy throat. I keep sounding like I'm about to start crying. It's just my throat. But they need to do what I think that they should do on the watch. So kind of like on the watch, obviously they don't want to give people access to make their own watch faces. But they could do some sort of modular design where they split the watch into a grid of 3x3 so that there are 9 cells and people can choose, I want a 3-cell place here and I can use these kinds of complications. I want a 1-cell here, a 2-cell here. And they can design their own watch face within some limitations. And they could do something very similar on the in Control Center. There are these play and 15 seconds back, 15 seconds forward. If you hard press on that and then you have a full screen widget or whatever you want to call it, area for that. So that's already designed. So just give us the access to say, we have a grid of 4 crossed and, 6 tall. And I can design that grid however I want to have 2-cell, 1-cell, 4-cell, 8-cell, whatever it is in these places. And it would be very easy for them to do. They wouldn't have to really compromise much on like making things look good, but still give people access to customize it that's most useful to them. I don't know. It just seems like there is a healthy balance here, and for whatever reason they're not leaning that way that I can tell.
I think the reason is it's way easier to upkeep. The dead simpler that it is, and as soon as you give everybody like, design the whole system that gives everyone all these,
right,
different
but they can
modular.
do that by default, and nobody, they could add in those features, and 2% of people will actually ever change it. And, but for the 2% of people that do change it, it will be extremely useful for them.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know.
whatever.
But yeah, so that brings me to, iOS 12, I spoke before about how I think very ironically, the do not disturb button now creates a notification that is,
Yeah.
I would not be that annoyed if you couldn't dismiss it, but it creates a notification badge that says like, you are now in do not disturb. And if it were just stuck there, I'd be like, whatever, okay. But I have this tendency that I want to clear the notification. And even without like, I don't know what happens. I think just time passes and it'll put that notification back on the lock screen. It's just a little, you remember we talked about it before?
Yeah, I remember.
That's horribly unintuitive in my opinion. And then the other thing that I just found out is a new thing. So I think by default now, it'll like automatically update your phone.
Yeah. Or not by default. You have to opt in, but yeah.
Yeah, but it was set up in a way that I think a lot of people did opt in. It seemed like it was encouraging it. I did not do that just because I wanted to like review the changes and everything. And the new thing now is that you get a little badge for software updates that cannot be turned off.
Yeah,
and you like either update to the new software, or you're going to have a badge forever. Those are your choices. And again, very ironically, the settings app, which is the app that has the controls for badges and turning things on and off, you cannot turn off the badge for the settings app. And so, I'm forced to upgrade for like the rest of my life. Because am I just going to leave a badge there for the rest of my life on my home screen?
Yeah, I mean, I guess same thing. Like, part of me likes that they're like nudging people that way, just because I do hate seeing people's phones like 3 versions behind, and not because like somebody like you would do that because they have like actual reasons, but some people won't just because they don't like, well, my phone updates. I didn't know that it did that.
Mm-hmm.
But like those people don't know how to turn it off anyway, so give us the option to turn it off. Like there are cases where, I can't update it today, maybe I'll update it in like 2 days. And even me, the person that's like trying to update things as fast as possible, sometimes you just can't. But I also don't want just a notification on top of my phone for the next 2 days. So yeah, that really drives me crazy too.
And so we weren't recording when we talked about this, but my show notes this fine evening are split into complain and praise. And so far, I think we've done a lot of complaining.
Yeah. We need to like just rename the show to Complain and Praise.
I blame myself. I got one more thing to mostly complain about, I think.
Okay. I have one thing after that.
Is it iOS related? Because you can go ahead if...
No, it's not iOS related at all. It's bad news on on something that I was trying on my secret mission, but we can talk about that afterwards.
Okay, yeah, I want to hear about the secret mission. And to be perfectly honest, I have about 15 other things that I could complain about, but I'm going to save them because they're not super relevant. But the one thing that is kind of time dependent here is I went and I saw First Man. Do you know First Man?
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
So it snuck up on me. It's got Ryan Gosling, and some other big names that I can't remember right now. But, Ryan Gosling plays Neil Armstrong in a space movie. And I was not super aware of this film. And I try not to be. The great thing about films is you can just like pay no attention and just occasionally check what's in theaters and you will miss nothing. So it's really just great kind of the system for that. And also, side note, I really, really like the Theaters app by Apple. I don't think they've updated it in a long, long time, but like it works fine. You can see like theaters and films out in theaters, and I love it.
Huh. I
But
remember seeing that like maybe 5 years ago, but I've never used it.
it's pretty good. It has the Rotten Tomatoes like scores in there. It has just showtimes. It's pretty good for pretty much having been abandoned at this point. But anyway, big film. Didn't hear about it. And then it was out and I was like, oh my gosh, a space movie. It's got a big budget. Ryan Gosling. I'm not going to really spoil anything, but like it was a bleak movie.
Like
you haven't,
not good bleak or just bleak?
What I liked about it are they pretty much recap all of the really intense moments. But what you really could do, like you could just have these as little short 5-minute like clips of just kind of like dramatizations of the things that happened during the, like lead up to Apollo 11. And I'd be very happy with those clips. But in between all those little clips is just like Ryan Gosling being sad. And, like I have this kind of picture of, people were, it's kind of like joshing around, right stuff, kind of like quirky kind of guys having fun. And maybe this is more like a true representation of what it was like. But yeah, it was a pretty sad movie, just overall.
I'll have to see it. I mean, sad can be a good sometimes. Like you can have a sad, good movie if it's done well. I don't know. I'd have to see it though. I saw a really good movie recently too, though. But
what was the movie?
So there's this guy named Alex Honnold. Are you familiar with him?
No.
So Alex Honnold is a free solo rock climber. So like the past maybe 5 years or something, I've been like watching every interview on this guy. And there's this other, he's like a photographer and filmmaker named Jimmy Chen. He made a movie with recording Alex Honnold climbing El Cap in California, free solo. So with no ropes. It's like 2,000 or 3,000 foot face, basically flat wall straight up with like just climbing up it with like a couple millimeters here and there to like get up this wall. And he's doing it with no rope. It's really good, but it only opened in a few places. It opened in Seattle. He actually came to the showing in Seattle, but it was the one after the one that I went to. But I don't know. It's such a good movie. So I just want to recommend that to you or to anybody whenever it comes around your city. But it's so good. He's such an interesting guy. Just the way that he thinks about, to be somebody like that, you have to be like, really careful and really smart. He's doing something that's super deadly, but he does it in a way like he's climbed this thing probably over 100 times. Like there are parts of the movie where he explains like every little movement, and he's like he's like replaying these motions in his head, not even looking at anything. He just like knows every movement that it takes to get up this wall, and he learned those by trying every possible movement a million times to figure out which one was right, which one was the safest before he did it with no rope. But it's really fascinating.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. What is it called again?
It's called Free Solo.
Free Solo.
Yeah. And then there's Jimmy Chen. I discovered him in a documentary. It's on Netflix called Meru, which have you seen that?
Well, I don't know if I've seen it, but I saw it and came very close to watching it one time.
You should watch it. It's really good too.
Okay.
But they're the first person to climb this one mountain, which is like difficult because it has lots of different climbing. So you have to like lug like hundreds of pounds worth of gear up this mountain. And at the end, they finally make it and they just like toss all this gear off the edge. But I don't know, it's really good.
Is that what you do when you get to the top?
Yeah, you just toss all the gear off the edge and then you take a sled down or something.
Just break out the skis and just go for a whole hour.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good though.
All right. Do you want to move on to some positive things?
Well, I've got one more sad thing.
Talk about the secret thing.
Okay,
this is the first, I've been hearing about the secret thing for a long time now.
Okay, so episode 16, we talked about Return to Rajapur, and I was like obsessed with trying to figure out how can I get this movie. So I went through a rabbit hole. Like I even like the filmmaker and writer of this movie now follows me on Instagram. Is how is how deep I got in. So I started with IMDb. IMDb referenced some website that no longer exists. I can send you the web archive of it.
Okay.
So this is the web archive of the website that was up when the movie was playing. The archive contact page directs you to a few places. It references a company called ArcLight Films. It references Sundance. It references IFC Films. I found her email address on the contact page, and so I emailed her. So I emailed her. Her name is Nanda Anand, and she didn't reply. So I contacted ArcLight Films, who supposedly owns the movie. They say that they do not own the movie. They said to talk to Sundance. I talked to Sundance. Sundance said they do not own the movie either. They said that IFC Films owns the movie. I talked to IFC Films. They say ArcLight owns the movie. So I got stuck in this loop of trying to contact people that supposedly own this movie. Nobody knows anything about it. They all know that they had it at one point, but they don't have access to it anymore. So I was like, all right, she didn't reply to my email. I need to figure out how to talk to the writer and the director of the film, this woman, Nanda. So I searched for her online. I can't find her anywhere. I find your post on Reddit, which directs to her Instagram and Twitter. Her Instagram is private. Her Twitter is not being upkept anymore. But that kind of led nowhere. But I did find an article on a website called Rediff, Rediff. And
Rediff.
Yeah.
Is it
so
like
this
a ripoff?
Yeah, I think so. It's like an Indian news site, I think.
Oh, okay.
But this guy, I have his Twitter name here, but this guy, I think interviewed her and wrote an article about the movie. So I was like, I found him on Twitter and DM'd him. I was like, hey, I'm trying to get in contact with the director. Could you help me out? He said, yeah. And then he replied, he sent her a message using the same email address that I sent before saying, hey, this is, Gil. He's trying to find your movie. Can you help him out? And she replied. So she said that, sorry, I don't have access to the movie, but it's owned by ArcLight Films. So here I am again, stuck in this loop. So long story short, one of these three companies owns it, but none of them know it. So that's kind of where I am. So I don't have the movie yet, but I got very close.
You did speak with her? Was that through email then? Or
Yeah. So I spoke to her through email. She followed me back on Instagram, but she does not have the movie.
Surely she has it though, but she just doesn't have the rights.
Well, she wouldn't answer that. She just said that you have to get it from ArcLight Films. That's what she kept saying.
Right.
Which I don't know. I tried to make it very clear. I'm not somebody trying to resell the movie. I just want to watch it. So I tried to get any weird stuff that maybe she would just give it to me as oh, okay, you just want to watch it. Here you go. But
here you go.
Apparently not.
Huh.
I'm imagining it. Maybe it's on film and she just doesn't have it on her computer. I mean, this is her only film. I even found that it's called something else. It's called Searching for Sarah. It was briefly called. I couldn't find anything under that. This film doesn't exist.
The plot thickens, Gil.
Yeah. I mean, I got as close as you possibly could. But
yeah, if the director's I don't know, these people, last I heard they had it and they're just claiming to not have it.
They all say somebody else does, and then it takes me back to the beginning.
It sounds like I would put money on ArcLight, and I think we just need to drag their CEO guy out from the woodwork and inquire.
Well, I mean, as we know from our previous episodes, he's probably listening. But my bet would be on Sundance. I think Sundance. So there are different departments of Sundance. I was talking to Sundance Archive. Apparently, I need to talk to some other division of Sundance. I tried to contact them, and they didn't know anything either. But I think it's in Sundance. I think they have it. That they had like they're the latest reference that I could find online of where it was.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. That I tried.
Gil, I'm very impressed. This is just I love it. I love it. Oh. This is I don't remember if we talked about it before, but I went through like a very similarly complicated process trying to figure out you remember that like manuscript that has a reference to the Elon that Werner von Braun wrote?
No.
We talk about that? There's just basically when Werner von Braun came over to the United States in like 1940 or something, he wrote like a novel that no one ever published or picked up, and in it he calls the leader of Mars, quote, the Elon. And this is for no obvious reason. Like, this thing was buried for a long, long time. Elon Musk didn't have access to it. His parents wouldn't have had access to it. It is just a beautiful coincidence that the leader of Mars is named the Elon by, like, the guy that brought rocketry to the forefront. So...
Huh.
Yeah, I called a bunch of people just to figure out where this manuscript was, and it ended up being down at the archive at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center. And I have a Reddit post somewhere, but I just went down and, asked to see it and leafed through it, used Google Translate on my phone, and got some pictures of the, like, original German typewritten manuscript. So that's pretty
awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun to track this stuff down. And yeah, Rajapur, man, I'm like... It's getting to the point that, like, it feels like somebody, like, I don't know. Was her reaction positive about it? Was she, like, enthusiastic? Maybe she wants to forget it somehow or something? Or, like, there was controversy with the ownership or the distribution or some kind of...
Yeah, she didn't say a whole lot. I can go back and try and find the email, but she was very direct and just kind of answered the question. She didn't really go into it too much.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe like it was not like politically correct in some part or something, and now someone just has disappeared it. I don't know. But
yeah.
All right. Well, you've given me hope, Gil, and I think I might like try to continue down this path at some point, or let me know if you make any more progress. But this is good stuff.
Yeah, I may just email everybody again eventually, but I don't know. It was like. It gave me like a treasure hunt type feeling, and I was like, okay, I really want to find this movie. Like, I wouldn't even watch it. I just want to see if I can find it, and I couldn't. But maybe I need to find something else and see if I can, try again, because it's fun to try and track down.
Yeah, it's an incredible feeling to just like hunt down some obscure thing for like nearly no reason, and just you talk to all these people and you're like, yeah, this I have a friend with a friend that wanted to watch it. This is like
yeah, it's like, oh, this guy wrote an article in 2006, and can you like put me in contact with the writer and director? It's like, sure.
Listen, I need to talk to this random guy who wrote this one random thing one time.
Yeah,
the world, it always feels like we have things figured out, but just to remember that we're still like very much a part of just a whole world. I don't know how to say it, Gil. How do I say it? We know less than we think we know. And I think everybody kind of thinks of this as like the end point, but there's still just a huge future, and we're still also very like trapped kind of in sort of systemic, like there's a lot of just limitations in society. I think that people tend to think like, oh, it's the future. We don't have these problems. We don't have like slavery and all these horrible problems of the past. And, it's not as bad as it was, but there's definitely just like, I don't know the point I'm trying to make. Maybe we can cut this too, but.
Well, I think I know what you mean. Just like, we think that we're past all the bad parts of history, but like us in 50 years are going to look back and like, those morons, like they didn't know anything. Like, but it feels like we're already there, but we're obviously not, and we'll always be progressing in that way. Like we were talking last time about, so I've been mostly vegan for the past a month and a half or so.
Mm-hmm.
So like us in like 50 years or like 100 years are going to look back and like those monsters, like eating all these animals, enslaving them, and it was like giving them cancer and giving them all heart disease, and they just ate it all up. But that's just like how we grow up. Like a meal is not complete without meat in the middle, and you can't even like have something that's vegan or vegetarian without the whole table noticing and saying, oh, like, are you vegan? Like, I mean, I'm just eating over here. Just leave me alone.
Yeah.
But there's like, I don't know. There's a bunch of little things like that we think we've figured everything out, but we haven't.
Yeah, and there's a lot of social pressure and kind of like awkwardness where I think long-term civilization. I've been watching a lot of Star Trek, Gil. Basically, see, Star Trek does this thing where they assume, oh, just spaceship technology is going to get better and culture is kind of going to be preserved, and that's better for making a TV show because it doesn't just alienate your audience with like weird technologies that we don't understand.
Yeah.
So it won't be exactly like Star Trek, and surely we'll have, better artificial intelligence than they show in the show, or better something, right? Or worse, maybe not as advanced health care or whatever.
Yeah.
But they do try to portray like an idealized kind of post-scarcity society. But even then, they're still looking to, kind of discover things in the universe. And so it's always easy to think like, oh, we've got everything figured out. But,
yeah.
Like, I don't know if you saw
this for thousands of years and we haven't figured it out yet.
I don't know if you saw the recent XKCD. One of the latest ones is like, do you know XKCD?
No, I've also never seen Star Trek.
Oh, Gil.
Sorry.
Well, you know the idea of Star Trek, though.
Yeah, I know something about. There's a transporter in there because Gray made a video about that.
Well,
that's essentially all I know, though. And it's
in
the future on a spaceship.
I really like Next Generation because okay. Sometimes, it follows kind of this plot line that there's some problem, and then there's sort of a very moral response and like kind of the height of what humanity can be, and kind of like responding in just very morally positive ways. I don't know how to say it. Just, it's like an ideal human race. And I really like The Next Generation because you get a lot of Captain Picard, who, he's played by, what's the guy's name? Do you know his name?
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, the bald guy.
But I can't remember his name.
I don't know his name right now. And actually, really fun thing, I learned that from listening to, I think, A-Town, which is the podcast that had reached out to us, and we talked to Charlie from it. They are making a new Star Trek with Picard. Very little details at the moment, but that's really exciting.
Yeah. I feel like it's like I'm like obligated. Like I feel like I would like Star Trek and Star Wars, but like I don't want to like. I feel like I'm so far behind, and also, since I don't have the nostalgia factor to them, maybe I won't like them because they don't hold up as well to somebody watching for the first time now. I don't know. I just feel like it's a lot.
Well, the original Star Trek right now is pretty rough, and also Kirk is just very different than Picard. But Next Generation, I think, was like late 90s, and that's just, 80s, 90s is right on the fringe of things I'm able to watch comfortably. And I still do roll my eyes every episode because they introduce some kind of like very alien technology or magic or something that just, I would really like to just see a show that's exclusively kind of normal situations, and they're just trying to like debate trade, diplomacy type stuff, but they add in these kind of fun elements because it's the future and aliens and stuff. But the big thing is like Picard will always like have a very informed kind of conversation with everybody and reach like logical, ethical conclusions, and it's just what humanity could be. So I really like that about it.
Yeah, I need to watch it.
Mm-hmm. So I got a new email app.
Oh yeah, because what is it called? The one that
Astro.
you were using before, Astro.
Astro is dead.
Yeah.
But
So
you know what?
what app are you using?
Good riddance to Astro, Gil. I am using Edison, and I tried Edison back, I think like our first or second episode. I said I was trying some of the email apps that you had said, and I confused it with Spark at the time. And the reason that I did not just use Edison back then is when I first set it up, I moved an email to a different folder and then like refreshed, and that email didn't move. So there was some kind of glitch that freaked me out, and I was worried like that things weren't going to go where I was trying to put them.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much the only thing that did it, because otherwise I really like Edison. It is just a very clean, it's very similar to Astro, but very clean, nice email app. And I really appreciate just the little features that it has, that it does just different. It's like no one else is trying to do this. So a couple examples here. It has a little feature in the settings that is signature recognition. And I don't even use signatures, so it doesn't really matter to me, but I love how it does this. It basically will just look at all your past emails and try to figure out what you've put as a signature in the past.
For your emails that you send,
Yeah,
it will
so
add a signature based on just what you normally do.
well, it has it's like the menu where you can pick what you want your signature to be, but instead of like having to type it in, you click a little button and it analyzes all the emails you sent before you had Edison, because it just has access to your sent mail.
Right.
And it just looks at what was at the end of the email. And I think it does like an AI thing. Like I think it's pretty sophisticated. And it just pulls out whatever you usually sign your emails with, and you can pick that as your signature. So if you have this big, long, complicated thing, you don't have to copy that over from your previous email app, and it'll just poof into existence right in Edison.
Yeah. Huh.
So I love that.
I've used this before, and I can remember using it based on a couple of these screenshots here, but I can't remember why I went away from it. I'm using Airmail right now, which I like, but I don't know. I guess I'm just always going to be on the hunt for a better email app. Like there are just a few small things that Airmail does that I don't like.
Airmail was a contender for me, except that it costed like $10. And so what I actually did is I had a bunch of email apps on my home screen. I had Edison, what's the one that Spark? I had Spark. I had the default mail client, and then I had something weird that didn't last long and not even worth mentioning. But so Spark I tried, and I don't know. It was good. It was good. I can't complain about Spark, but it was just a little different, and Edison is just very clean and pretty. The default one is just a little bit too simple at this point. Yeah. And Edison does just about everything. The only thing I think it doesn't do is it won't schedule like an email to send in the future, like a particular time.
Like, sorry, say that again. I was looking at screenshots.
Just if you want to send an email at like 8 in the morning tomorrow, so you don't look like you're a slob that sleeps in until noon. Like that was my favorite feature of Astro.
Airmail has a bunch of little features, so I do like it a lot. It's just like there's like an aesthetic about it that I don't like, but
for Airmail,
yeah, but like it has like all these little settings, so I can make anything smaller or larger, or I can get rid of more detail or add things. But it also has stuff like read receipts, which I do like in some cases, like in an instance, like when I'm emailing a writer and director of a film trying to see if she can give me a copy of the movie. I can see whether or not she's opened that email. So it's got a bunch of little things like that I like also. And then it also just ties into things like Evernote and To Do and a bunch of side things. It has a dedicated unsubscribe button so I don't have to find it in the email. So I don't know. I'm happy with Airmail. It's just something about the way it looks that I don't like. Yeah. I can't really put my finger on it.
I don't remember if, some clients have purposefully don't load the little, what do they call them? It's just a single pixel that loads, like a tracking pixel in the emails.
Right, yeah.
And I forget if Edison has an option to not load those so that it doesn't send a read receipt. But I did see that on a couple, which is kind of interesting. I do like that.
Yeah.
But I really want, though, I don't so much care if it tells people if I looked at it. I just want to know if there is a tracking pixel. Just tell me who is trying to see if I'm reading it. And I don't see that a lot.
I think my favorite feature is, so it has this feature to where you can send an email to somebody and say, like, if they don't follow up, like if they don't reply to me in a week, and then remind me to follow up with them again.
Yeah.
I've used that a few times, and that's a really nice feature also that I wish I had at work. But I can't use AirMail at work. So,
well, I that was on Astro, and I like the idea of that feature, but I thought when I got it that it was like just going to start reminding me if someone hasn't replied when I send an email, but you have to like set it. And I really wish that was kind of an automatic thing, because I can just set a reminder, you know?
So like if you have a question mark in the email or something, just go ahead and set a reminder automatically.
I don't know. Do you send enough emails that I pretty much want every email to get an alert that someone hasn't replied to me? Because usually if I'm sending an email, there's some kind of reply, right?
Yeah, but the conversations end eventually, and sometimes I'm the last person to send something, and I wouldn't want to get reminded in those cases.
Yeah. I don't know, like if there was a dedicated, here's things that you sent that haven't had a reply, like an inbox that was just messages that have not been replied to after you have said the last word on these conversations, that would be ideal. So it's not like a notification. It's just like, here's a little place to look and see, what no one has replied to, and you've said the last word on these conversations, and do you want to say something else? I would like that a lot.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't need to be, it could just be a color change or a little dot or something saying, hey, you were the last person to say something.
Yeah, or just an area that's like, here's all the conversations that you have ended. And you just, scroll through that, see every once in a while who has said something or who hasn't replied to something that probably should have had a reply.
Yeah. So I'm getting barked at.
A couple other things, though, that Edison does that are just different, and I really like. It has this thing that is like a security feature. So it has a little, what it calls assistant section. And so it has subscriptions that you have, and you can easily unsubscribe to things. It has travel. So it just automatically identifies these categories: packages, bills and receipts, entertainment. So those are all just kind of auto categories with things in them. But the last one is security. And when you click it, it just lets you run your email through, I don't know where it's running it through, but it just sees if it has been compromised in any way just by looking at public data breaches. And I love that.
I do remember the other categories when I was using it, and I like that a lot. I didn't know about that feature, though, and that is really interesting. Yeah,
just nice little stuff. And even a fun little thing that I think it's so stupid, but it's kind of satisfying and just shows me that they care, is they have, and it even like almost market it as a feature. If the email is unread, it has a little dot, most apps have a little dot that means it's unread. You can drag that little dot, and it has like a little animation, like it snaps out, and it's like this cute little dot. And so you can like toss the dot, and it makes the message read, which is stupid. Like there's no purpose for that, but I love it.
Yeah, that is really cool. I like little just things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just sent you a link to a website called I've Been Pwned. Have you heard of this?
Well, that's probably what more or less Edison is running things through.
So it's probably running it through this, which is a really good website. And I think everybody should sign up for this, because basically what it'll do is it will email you when your name shows up on some sort of data breach.
That's clever. Unless, what if, are they secretly just trying to collect email addresses to sell to people? That would be like,
no,
there's
I
things
remember,
like, check if your password has been compromised. Type in your password now.
Yeah, no, I can't remember why I trust it, but I remember looking into it a few years ago, and I remember checking out that I trusted it.
Okay.
Oh, there's a Bitcoin donation at the top.
There you go. You
There we
can
go.
you can trust it if it accepts Bitcoin. Last thing I got that's timely, Gil. Did you get a presidential alert a couple of days ago, maybe like a week ago?
Yeah.
Like the rest of the entire nation?
Yeah.
I have no particular thing to say about that, but it's just very interesting. And I wasn't aware that that was something that was implemented, that just the entire
I have
nation
never seen that before.
could... Man, there's some... I don't know. I'll be interested to see if that ever gets used for a thing.
Like, is it... So there's like the... You know, when you were like... I remember being a kid and sometimes the TV would cut out in the middle of, you know, cartoons or whatever I was watching and go... And then it would have some message.
Mm-hmm.
Is this like the 2018 version of that, I guess? Because nobody watches TV anymore and everybody's got their phone in their hand. But also, like, was presidential alert the right thing to name it? Because I don't want Trump to just, like, have access to sending me a message at any point.
As soon as I got it, I was just like, Trump found a new way to tweet.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I can force everybody to listen to my crazy ideas now.
Oh, I don't know. Do you think, okay, like a 9/11 event, do you think that that would go off? Or I'm trying to figure out what kind of things this thing is for.
I don't know. Like, there would have to be, like, a nuke coming for America. Like, something like a 9/11. I mean, do you need a presidential... I mean, I'm not trying to say, like step on any toes here, but I don't think that a presidential alert on everybody's phone is really making any difference aside from maybe a panic.
Do you remember though, like where were you? What happened for that?
I was at school. Like on the morning announcements, they told us what happened, and I was, I guess, like in like 4th or 5th grade. And then I went home and we like watched the news all day. I didn't really understand like how big of a deal it was at the time, but you know, I remember everything about it because everybody was telling me it was such a big deal, and it obviously it was. But like I don't remember any of the details around, like, you know, how was the public alerted and what effects did that have on how people reacted to things.
That was
this
pretty
the new
much
version of that.
My experience too. Here's my defense is that, you know, at the time, maybe I guess they didn't have a great idea of it, like how the scale of things, and like people certainly reacted and they found out anyway. You didn't need a presidential alert, so I guess I'm pretty in favor of it. I'm just very curious when it would be used, what the cutoff of kind of a level would be, because you remember this Hawaii thing, right? Did we talk about that on the show? Right, that's what I was
gonna say. No, but I don't think I would be so hesitant to it if it weren't for the Hawaii thing, I guess, because like it's more likely that there will be an unnecessary nationwide panic from somebody making a mistake than there is to use it for a real cause. And is the opportunity cost of a possible nationwide panic worth just like making people aware of something that happened? Like, when will it be more worth it to tell everybody one thing? Like, when is that going to be actually useful, and is it more useful than it is detrimental to panic a whole country? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, like Hawaii served as a good test ground, you know? Like, oh, what would happen if we accidentally sent a fake alarm? And like Hawaii did all right, right? Nobody murdered anyone, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know, but it like made a bunch of people scared for their lives. Like,
that was my hypothetical. Is like, if you just saw that and you were like, well, I've always wanted to rob a Walmart, or even just went in and took things from the Walmart because I'm not sure anyone would stop you, really? Like, would that be a crime? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because then you'd be like, what? I thought that all of existence was ending and I wanted to like stock up on supplies. And I'm surprised that didn't happen. Maybe it did and I just didn't hear the news about it, but I think I looked for it and nothing like that.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything like that either, but even if something did like that happen, that's just another point for like they shouldn't have such simple access to send everybody a message.
Yeah.
But whatever. So, okay. I have one or two very, very, very small things. So about CGP Grey.
Yeah.
So in the last episode, I don't know if this was Cortex or Hello Internet. I think it was Hello Internet, but he was talking about he was like hiking in the mountains in Washington. So just a little thing that I thought was interesting was like, hey, because Brady was talking about hiking in Machu Picchu without his phone and just kind of like being in the moment and being a little bit more secluded. And Gray had talked about walking in the mountains of Washington, which I thought was interesting because I had like just been through kind of the same experience to where I've never really been hiking through the mountains before I moved here, and now I'm like in love with it.
Did he say Washington?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he had just been saying undisclosed location.
No, yeah, in the episode he says Washington.
Okay, that's probably why he didn't disclose it, because it's like actually,
Yeah,
I thought it was like in the middle of, some Sherpa village in Europe or something.
Yeah, I'm mostly just disappointed that I didn't get like a hot drop opportunity to go find a hot stopper in Seattle somewhere, but
One day.
And then the second thing is, so Gray likes these pop socket things. You know about these?
Yeah, I know about pop sockets.
What are your thoughts? I hate these things.
Do I have to even have thoughts? I mean, I cannot
believe that he likes it. It's like it makes your phone so hideous. But I can see that it's useful, but it's just so ugly.
I have dreamed of like an integrated pop socket. Like I love it from a usability and ergonomics kind of standpoint, and maybe it has something to do with like he talks about RSI and like pain in his fingers a lot. I have a small enough phone that I'm kind of okay. I still sort of support it on my pinky.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hate to have something on my phone, and it would have to be a lot of benefit for me to give in to the pop socket. But like I kind of see the value, maybe.
Yeah, but every second that you're not using it, you've got this big notch in your pocket, and it's just like hard to get it in and out of your pocket. Like it's permanently affixed, and when you do have it, you have to you have this step of expanding this little accordion on the back of your phone and resting it on your finger. Like it just introduces all of these steps and is so cumbersome and also looks awful that I cannot imagine that it's worth the benefit of it. And I don't know. I just don't like it. And I just wanted to say that I'm very surprised that Gray likes it so much.
We should make a better pop socket, Gil.
Yeah, I was thinking about I was trying to think about a like some sort of design that maybe like hooks into the lightning cable that is basically a pinky rest at the bottom. So it's just a separate pinky rest higher up in the bottom of the phone, but something more collapsible and small that's not really as obtrusive and annoying in your pocket. I don't have the materials to make something that's strong enough to do that. But I feel like you could I don't know. There might be something there. They need to make this bottom port like more. Obviously they would never do, but an opportunity to make the phone more modular, possibly, because there are a few scenarios as for like a phone holder also, where I would want to use something that hooks onto the phone like very securely. That could possibly be the lightning port, but I haven't really figured that out yet.
I'm thinking something that would be like the most minimal case possible. So, like hardly a case, and then the whole purpose of the case is to just give a mounting point, like a screw hole, in the dead center of the phone. And then you also wear like a ring or something, and it can just kind of like screw in. And then what would be actually really cool is if you could kind of almost get the phone to like work like a fidget spinner.
How do you mean?
Well, it would just have a point of rotation in the dead center of the back of it.
Oh, okay.
And that's how you would support it. But then also, if it were like on a bearing, you could just rotate it. And I think people would really like enjoy that. It's pointless, but they would they would like to do it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna think
the
about
ring
that
idea
now,
is the ring idea is interesting. I'm not like a case person, so I never have a case on my phone. But if I did have a case and it just had like a little tiny notch in the back, if you had like a magnetic ring that also, I mean, I guess the ring would also have to have a notch in it, which might be annoying.
Yeah.
But the magnet could like affix the notch into the notch so that it's really secure, you know, until you have to pull it like directly away.
So work in progress. Something would probably have to stick out, but if it's just a ring you can like take off, or I'm gonna think about it, Gil. I'm gonna think about it.
Yeah, we don't need to figure it out live on the podcast. Do you have anything else?
Oh, I have so much more, Gil. So much more. We could go for another solid hour. I think we call it.
Okay.
Very tempted. I'm very tempted. I could talk about a TV, could talk about a phone, could talk about a YouTuber.
A YouTuber?
Yeah. Okay. We can cut this out because this is very short, but the YouTuber is just this guy named Polymatter. And holy crap, he's very Gray-like in his explanation, and he has little sections, and it's kind of lengthier videos, but he's super frequent. He does fantastic animation. He has like a paste bin link in his description that links to every source he uses. Like his latest video. What? Polymatter. Polymatter. And he's part of the standard TV network thing. So he's like probably friends with Gray, I'd imagine, or I don't know how that works, but he is like the best YouTube person that I have ever seen. It's just beautiful animation. It's one guy. It's his like not even his day job. I think he's a programmer or something. Just gorgeous animation, super insightful. He usually talks about like Apple and big companies, so it's very relevant to this podcast, and so that's my little recommendation.
Yeah, I'll watch a few episodes, and maybe we can talk about some.
It's so.
So, have you listened to? Do you know about Nerdwriter?
Nerdwriter.
Yeah.
Writer. What is that?
Okay,
no.
That's a rabbit hole that you need to go into. So, Nerdwriter is a YouTube channel. It's like, I guess, like partially like philosophical type explanation about different topics. It's very wide ranging topics, but just go to Nerdwriter on YouTube and just find whatever looks interesting. It's like a video. They're like video essays around different topics, but they're all like so good.
Oh God. I can't do it, Gil.
Do it.
Oh, it looks good. I've had similar people kind of like this, and I've had to just wean myself off of the video essay kind of topic that goes all over.
They're pretty short, but I've been watching him for a few years, and then just the other day I watched an interview. Somebody was interviewing him. It was like a 45-minute interview, and he was just talking about, how you think about things and how like different topics that he's learned about has really shifted his perspective, and just kind of like, he's a very smart guy, but he talks about how you kind of like throughout your life, and in like especially like through your 20s, you learn as much as you can about other people's worldview, and you're kind of like chipping away at everybody's worldview to kind of create your own. But he's like he's just a very interesting thinker, and he's really good at explaining these like philosophical type ideas much better than I am. But you should definitely check some out.
I'm looking at him. He's got one called The Crazy Story of a Real Life Treasure Hunt, which not only I'm curious to see if I already know about, because I went down a deep treasure real life rabbit hole recently, but also since we were just talking about that with the Ratchipper thing.
Yeah.
Gil, the other day I subscribed to a guy that just talks about the tactics in fictional, mostly like Star Wars and Halo. He talks about tactics and like how battles played out in these fictional like just video games and TV shows or movie, I guess, with Star Wars. And it's like, so it's sad, but I like them. He's not sad. It's like, wow, I'm watching fictional, like how battles played out, but they weren't real.
Yeah, you should send that to me.
Yeah, it's Eckhart's Ladder, which I don't know what that is a reference to, or if that's his name or what, but he's just, there it is. It's just yeah, discusses like, oh, this is how the Covenant in Halo, how it compares to other ships and things like that. It's just super nerdy. But see, some of them are like just talking about Star Wars battles and like how the it's like, oh man, can we get any more like random with this? But it's entertaining and I kind of like it.
Are these like canon to the shows? Like, are these supposed to be true, or are these his own ideas?
Uh, no, it's like, I mean, there's a lot of lore, Gil. There's enough that I think what he says is generally pretty factual.
Here we go. What is time dilation? Does it exist in Star Wars? I'll start with that.
There you go. Yeah, it's like no, because it's a movie, but it's kind of interesting to watch them.
Maybe I should watch Star Wars first. I really need to. I have all of them.
You should probably experience the lore some before you watch
Yeah.
weirdly detailed videos about the lore.
The thing is, I think I know. So Star Trek, I don't know a ton about, but I feel like I know everything that there is in Star Wars, just because it's such a part of like pop culture, and I watch so many like super nerdy shows where they'll talk about Star Wars for hours. For instance, Hello Internet, or we'll have episodes every year around the latest Disney Star Wars and explain every little thing. And I'll listen to the whole thing and I find it interesting, but for whatever reason, I just haven't watched the movies yet. I have no reason. I just don't watch a lot of movies, I guess. I don't know.
No, yeah.
One of these days.
Well, that's what I said, though. Movies are the one medium that you can actually comprehensively see everything, like, fairly easily. Because you can just, if it doesn't have a good review, just forget it. And then, there's only a few left that do have good reviews at any given time, and see a movie a month, and you can kind of catch up on all that.
Yeah. Like, I want to be up to date on all the, like, it's, like, some of them, like, once you get into, like, the Marvel universe, especially now that they're all kind of interconnected, it's, like, so exhausting. Like, I have to watch, like, 15 movies a year just to stay on top of what's going on.
Yeah, that's about right. 15 movies a year. That's probably accurate. All right, look what we did, Gil. Look what we did. I did one little thing.
Venom. Okay, sorry. I watched. So I had a friend over, and he had a late flight at like 1 a.m. So we're like, okay, what can we do before you leave? And we just like we saw Venom, and it's not good.
No.
Yeah, not great. You can miss out on that one.
Okay, I was planning to.
Yeah. Probably just we'll cut everything before that, and we'll keep just my Venom movie review. That'll be a podcast episode.
Just the little singularity sound. I saw Venom. It wasn't good.
Wasn't good.